What's up, everyone? It's Olivia from Best Left Magazine, and I didn't really do an intro in the interview portion of the video, so I'm going to do one right now. But I had the lovely opportunity to interview the iconic, the show-stopping, the one-of-a-kind, the like no other, Eva from Charly Bliss, and it was so much fun, and we got to talk about their album that actually is out today. Today is Friday, August 16th, and if you're watching this today, Friday, August 16th, the album is out today. If you're watching it after Friday, August 16th, the album's still out, so it doesn't really make a difference. Go stream it. But yeah, enjoy the interview, and before we get into it, a word from our sponsors. That's a joke. There's no sponsor. Someone please sponsor us. Enjoy! Before I get started, I wanted to, get it out of the way, or, lay it straight. So is today your birthday, where you are, in your time zone?
So today is like because I'm from America,
Yeah.
and that is where I was born. Yes, today is my birthday, but in Australia, my birthday was yesterday, so I was out very late celebrating last night. So if I'm a bit slow to start this morning, that is why.
No, I mean, props to you for being up at your time. Like when they were like, oh, 6:30, I was like, wait, that's like morning for you. But happy birthday slash happy belated birthday. I saw the
Thank you
Instagram post. So
so
I was like, is
much.
it today or was it yesterday? But happy birthday nonetheless.
Thank you so much. That means a lot.
No, of course. I was so excited. I was like, oh my gosh, on your birthday, you're gonna be
Yay,
here.
interview.
Thank you. It's such an honor. But
Thank
I'm
you.
super excited to chat with you today about your upcoming release. Um,
Thank you.
Forever, and it's your first full-length album since your 2019 release, if that's correct, your first full-length, yeah.
Yes.
So
Yes.
how are you feeling? Any nerves or mostly excitement?
It's so interesting. Like for our last album, for Young Enough, I was so nervous. Like I was terrified with like every song that came out. It was really nerve-wracking and really consuming. This album, I have truly never been so proud of anything I've had a hand in working on, like in my whole life. So I just feel really, really excited, and we all, I think, like the four of us in the band, feel equally excited, which is such a gift as well. Like normally, in the past there have been like kind of like disagreements about like which direction are we moving in? Do we feel good about how this is all coming out? And this is really kind of like the only project we've ever worked on together where it's just like all four of us are equally excited. We couldn't be more thrilled with how it turned out. So it's really just felt like such a joy to release these songs so far and to have this album coming out in a few weeks. It's so surreal and really, yeah, really thrilling.
And I mean, you've received so much praise on it already. I saw Jack Antonoff praised one of your singles. You received praise from NPR, Rolling Stone. So if you were nervous, hopefully that would ease some of those nerves.
That was such an incredible surprise. Like with the Jack Antonoff thing, we were all just like screaming about that for days. I'm still screaming about it internally.
No, but I mean, I got to luckily listen to the album, which was super cool, and it's well deserved, and it's good that you it's this is something that you can feel proud of and confident in, and I think that's I find that, well, I mean, that's awesome, but it's interesting because if I'm uh wrong, correct me, but because you guys were like writing this and working on this while you guys were apart, so that's
Mm,
interesting, that maybe that's this process of being
right.
apart, maybe allowed you guys to actually take the directions where you all agreed. That's interesting. How did that work, and how did that change your creative process being so far apart from each other?
I think you're so right, and that's such a great observation. I really do think it was really painful being separated from each other. The song that we just released, Waiting for You, is sort of about what that felt like and sort of realizing like that you had taken certain relationships for granted, and I had certainly taken my bandmates for granted. And just when you're working so hard, and like we for years were basically like in the same, either the same like van or hotel or like back like green room as each other, like for like 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So it's easy to kind of like lose sight of how important those relationships are and just like how much you love each other. And I think like, but like on the same page as all of that. It's also like really hard to spend that much time together, like touring an album, and then like immediately go back to being in a rehearsal space together and be like, okay, cool, now make a record. Like, it's just so insular. And like, in some ways, I feel like my bandmates have seen like the best and worst of my personality, because like, it's just, it's really hard being around people that much and having them see you at your lowest and your highest. And I think there was something about the fact that like we were forced to write this album, not all of it, but a lot of it over Zoom, that kind of like gave us all space to really like, yeah, enjoy the process of making this album. Because like we weren't like, okay, we have to go to the practice space now. Like we have to like we have it for 3 hours. Like everyone's getting antsy. No one really wants to be here. It was kind of like when we could find the time to all be on Zoom together, especially in the times during the pandemic where it was like that was the only thing that was like keeping us alive. It was like the only thing like that felt like so creatively fulfilling. And so I don't know, it's just really rewarding, instead of feeling like, oh man, like this is just our job. It kind of like was such a great way of coming back to this thing that like ultimately is the reason why you get started in a creative career, is like because you really love it, because it matters so much to you, and because the people you're doing it with like are everything to you. And like, I think a lot of people had different experiences throughout the pandemic of that, but like that was our experience. And like there is something nice about like writing from home and being able to be like, okay, I'm gonna pause this Zoom and like go for a walk around the block. Like you don't have to be in the same headspace as everyone you're writing with. You can kind of like do your own thing while still being together, and that was really beneficial to us.
Yeah, it seems like there were like a lot of positives by being apart, which I think is really cool. And again, like you said, like this is kind of the first like album, I guess, where you guys like really were all agreeing on that direction. But I'm sure there were a lot of hardships from being apart. You mentioned it was just hard being apart from them because they're your friends. One of them is your sibling. Like
Yeah.
you're used to being with them all the time. But were there any other difficulties in trying to put this together from so far apart?
I mean, of course, it's funny. Like, I think the narrative is kind of like, oh, we were far apart, and that's what took us so long to get this album out. But it's funny, it wasn't really even that. Like, of course, that contributed to it, but like, um, it it was so painful waiting so long to put an album out, and like seeing on the internet like people being like everything we it was just like, where's the album, like are you guys even still a band, like blah, blah, blah. Like that stuff was really hard. And especially when it was hard, I think it would have been hard no matter what, but I think there was something about the fact that we were like sitting on what we all knew was like our favorite body of work that we had ever made, and something we believed in so much, that both helped in getting through like that long period of time where we weren't putting music out, and also like was so hard because like of course you're like, there's like the side of it that's like, okay, like this sucks, but like at least at the end of like however long this like waiting period takes, we're going to be releasing like these songs that we so believe in. But then there's also like the side where you're like, fuck, I just want to put these songs out so badly. And so that was really the hardest part. And of course, yes, like I missed them so much. I missed my bandmates so much. You know, right before the pandemic, Sam and his wife had a daughter, and I was there, the day she was born and for the first few weeks of her life. But then I thought when I went to Australia, like I thought that I was just going to be gone for 6 weeks, and I ended up being gone for a year and a half. So that was really painful, of course. Like Sam was going, like, missing my niece, and then also like just like missing being there for my brother during like this huge life transition was like, yeah, it was brutal. But I think ultimately, like, and I think a lot of people feel this way coming out of the pandemic, is like it was sort of this like, yeah, a reset button on just like priorities of like, oh, okay, cool, like that, these are the things that like I came out of it really really missing, and like it's so clear what I care about and what I don't. And that I think is like ultimately what I was left with.
I think, I mean, there's a lot of, I guess, lessons to be learned that and so many things I guess like everyone's taken away from this time, but we also get a really cool piece of work out of it, which is really awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, with all those frustrations, like at least there was a reward at the end, including an upcoming
Yes.
tour, which is super exciting,
Yes.
in North America. And you will be returning to New York, and I like you have two shows also now at the Music Hall of Williamsburg, right? There was a
Yes.
second added one, which is super exciting. But how does it feel to kind of, I mean, one, come back to the States, but also go back to New York, kind of the place that is known to be where you guys really originated?
There's nothing like playing New York for us. Like that is that it's so special. It's the best. And it's such an honor to be playing Music Hall of Williamsburg 2 nights. Like that's the first show we ever sold out as a band was at Music Hall of Williamsburg. So it's such a huge, like a very important venue for us. And like I don't know, I couldn't be more excited about that show. And I think when you're making an album, it's such like an insular experience. You're so like, and it's just like the four of like me and my bandmates, and like we're so like involved in this record and so like super super zeroed in. And then when you finally get the chance to tour it and you get to see people singing along to the lyrics and like and knowing the songs and like being able to like see how they like visibly care about the songs that you've been working on, like the music industry is fucked and whatever, but like that is the moment that makes it worth it. Always, every time. And I just think I think we're all just like so excited for that and to be able to like be back in front of, our the people who care about our music. And yeah, I really, really can't wait for this tour. And it's wild too because some of my friends from Australia are flying over to America to see the tour,
Awesome.
um, which is really surreal, very like meeting of two big
Yeah.
life moments. So that'll be great.
That's so special. Also on kind of a similar vein of you talking about how when you're recording an album, like you're just like so zeroed in on that, you don't really like maybe think about the touring part until you kind of get there, and then it is like all worth it, and you get to see these people and like singing along. But it also kind of makes me think of like when you're recording, like you have that vision, but is there like are there any songs that you're going to be playing from the album that you will be playing differently on tour, if that makes sense? Like are you reworking anything, or is it just kind of all the way
Yeah,
you recorded it?
I think what's so interesting, like for Guppy, our first album, like it was very straightforward, like how those songs would translate from the way we recorded them to the way they'd be played live on stage. But for Young Enough and this record included, like we've basically had a rule of like we will never not do something like in the recording studio if it serves the song. We will never not do it just because we're standing there going like, how are we going to recreate this
Yeah.
on stage? Like I really trust in the four of us. I think we are really good at being creative and like figuring out a way to make things work. But yeah, I think like overall on this album, there's still moments that I'm like, how are we gonna do that on tour with just four people on stage? Um, but I think that that's actually kind of like the beauty of it. Like, you know, there's sometimes like, it's now become like a joke within CB universe that like we definitely have some like fans of the band who will like always leave comments on like every single song we release being like, where are the guitars, like what happened to the guitars in your music? And I think for like people like that, um our live shows are like kind of like a perfect way of like remembering that like even no matter what we end up doing in the studio or like whatever, like we there's always like it's always going to come back down to like what our band started as. I mean, unless we start adding like 20 people on stage playing synths and like adding to whatever, but the core of who we have always been as Charly Bliss is still exactly the same. And like and I think that really comes across in our live shows, like when we just have to get creative about like how do we play this song that like has all these parts that like we're not going to be able to recreate, like how like we did that last album with like Spencer getting a pedal that allowed like his guitar to sound like a synth so that he could do the synth lines and like chat room and capacity and stuff, and like that ended up being like for the guitar nerds, like such a huge, exciting moment. So I think like I'm really excited for that phase where we like figure out how to rework a lot of these songs to work in a live setting.
Yeah, I think I definitely like as an audience member, like that is one of my favorite parts of a show. Like I think that's so cool, like seeing how people rework it. So I'm super excited for you guys to figure out how you're gonna rework it. Cause like you said, like it is like still like that core, like the stripped down like four of you. But I think that's like the beauty of music of like being able to like record and put as much as you want into it and then
Right.
play it however you want live. Like there's definitely like songs like and like shows I've seen where I don't want to say I prefer the live version, but they're different and they're two like they can be two separate like
Absolutely.
awesome things.
Well, I think you're exactly right, and it's like it calls into question like what are we going to see a live show for? Is
Mhm.
like do I feel bummed if I like go see a live show and it's like a perfect recreation of the album, like, and sometimes like I can lean towards being like a perfectionist, and there have been times where like I've even like messed up on stage or like forgotten lyrics, and sometimes my brother will say to me, he'll be like, when I go see a show, like that is my favorite shit. Like even if it's like a mistake, like I think it's like you it's a reminder that like you're watching like human beings doing something. So like it will never be the same again like two nights in a row. Even if you're trying to recreate the same thing two nights in a row, like it'll never be perfect, and like that is like you have the perfect version of it. Like you can listen to it on Spotify. That's like not why someone comes to see a show. So yeah, I agree with you. I really love that, and really love like when I go see a show being surprised by like how a band makes something work.
Yeah. I completely feel the same way. Like it's one of my favorite parts of a show I feel like is when maybe like a little quirk or even like a mistake happens because that makes it
Yeah.
so special. I'm like I was at that show when that happened.
Yeah,
Like, it's so
yeah.
special. But
Yeah.
on that same vein, I guess also of like playing this album live, are there any tracks on it that you're like particularly excited to play? Are there any that you're kind of nervous? I know like you said like you're excited to figure it out, but any specific tracks, I guess.
Um like it's so hard to choose just one because like we haven't played a show since putting any of these songs out, and like
Mhm.
and so I think I'm just gonna honestly be like blown away the whole show. I always get choked up on stage, so I'm sure I'll just be a mess. um I really feel like I fell back in love with singing on this album. Like historically recording vocals for me has been like really nerve-wracking. Like we've recorded all of our other albums like really in like condensed periods of time. Like I think Guppy, we maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like we recorded it in like 3 days or
Wow.
something. And like it's really nerve-wracking. Like basically like sometimes how it can work out is like in the studio the band will record the entire like we'll record all the instrumentals, like all the guitars and drums and bass and everything, and then at the very end the last thing you do is record vocals, and it's just like bang 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 going through like 10 or 12 songs or whatever. And so I always have felt like, oh my god, like so much anxiety around like if I lose my voice, like I've ruined everything, like we have to get out of the studio, we can't afford more time, like whatever.
Mhm.
And that has like really created like just like it makes me miserable. Like the part of like singing on an album like for recording has made me so miserable and nervous, to like to ruin everything and like take a long time. And on Young Enough, honestly, like I was so nervous that I kept losing my voice, and I did make it take a really long time. Like I remember like there's certain songs on Young Enough that like I can listen back to and be like, oh, I can hear how like I can hear that like I was on the verge of crying because I was so stressed out. And on this album, like we recorded with Jake and Caleb from Hippocampus. And Jake is the lead singer of the band Hippocampus, and like right off the bat, like one of the first things he asked me was like, what is your relationship to like recording vocals? And I was like, I fucking hate it. It makes me miserable, like whatever. And he was like, okay, we're gonna change that. And just like he was so insistent on me like reconnecting with enjoying the process of singing in the booth and recording that like I I had so much fun singing on this album, and like I really fell back in love with singing through making this record. That and also like I have a car in Australia for the first time in my life since I was a teenager, so like singing in my car is so fun, and like and I really have like just I don't know, I can hear on this album that I'm like enjoying singing and not just like forcing it out of myself. So honestly, like the songs where I really hear that on the album are like How Do You Do It and Last First Kiss. And so for those songs, like I'm really excited to see how that like translates sort of more like demanding vocal performances that are like demanding in a different way than I've done in the past for Charly Bliss. Less like yelly and more like soft and nuanced, I guess. Like I'm really excited to see how that translates to the live show. And what that feels like because I've kind of never experienced that in Charly Bliss, not since my musical theater days.
I was also a next theater kid, so
Woo!
and I also love singing in my car. That's like the best part about being like driving around for sure.
It so is. It's a religious experience, truly. Like having been without it for most of my adult life, and then suddenly having it again, like it, it's very special.
Yeah, very freeing for sure.
Mm.
And I honestly, I mean, I'm sure in your previous work, other people cannot tell that you were on the verge of tears in your vocals, but in this one, you can definitely like feel the fun of it. This album is so much fun, and it's definitely like I get that power pop like from it. Um, like it's so like bright and like big, and it was so much fun to listen to. And I love the vocals on it specifically, like listening to it, like I get that pop. And I've been like, I feel like, I mean, pop music is pop and popular for a reason, but I've been so more into pop lately, if that makes sense. So it was so much fun to listen to. And
Totally
it
agree.
shows that like
Oh,
you
thank you.
enjoyed it.
Thank
But
you.
sorry.
Oh no, I was just gonna say I feel like the pop music that's coming out right now is like the best music in the world. Like I was just talking to my fiance about that of like, holy shit, like what a great time for pop.
It
Amazing
really
music across the
is.
board coming out. Yeah.
It really is a good time for pop. So it's a great time to be releasing this for sure.
Thank
And
you.
tack it on as well. I actually wanted to ask, like, were there any vocal inspirations for this? Because it did like I guess sound a little bit different to me, and again, like very big and bright.
Yeah, I feel like for a lot of like this period of like I have a car and I'm like screaming along to songs in my car, I was singing along to a lot of Muna and a lot of Samia and Samia's music and my friend Rafaela, um, and just kind of like really inspired by how these women were like I don't know, like I've been making music for a long time and it's really cool. Like when I first started making music, there were so few women in bands and like I like in New York when I was like in my very very early 20s, late teens like and now like the music scene has really shifted so much and there's so many like incredible women making music and making like pop music, indie rock, indie like whatever, and just like I was so feeling like so inspired by all the women around me making such incredible music. So I would say like yeah, I was listening to a lot of those artists and really kind of like figuring out I think like when I first started I like I've said this before in interviews that like I felt like me being a woman and like the front person of Charly Bliss was like holding us back in a way because like every band we were playing with at the beginning of our career was like just all dudes. So I remember feeling very like embarrassed by my femininity and like my voice is very feminine and like and um I so I think like for a while then I got like really defensive about like that and felt like I had to like be really like sing everything like at like 110% and like show how tough I was through like singing and whatever. And then like these women who I just mentioned, like Katie Gavin and Samia and Rafaela, like I feel like loving their music like sort of allowed me to like like in yeah like not to drop some of that like defensiveness that I was feeling and just be like, oh, like this, like I can be soft and I can be tough and I can be loud and I can be whatever. Like they're all different tools and like I don't have to be like screaming at the top of my lungs 110% of the time to feel like I deserve to make music and like be a part of this world. So yeah, I was really, really inspired by them.
Yeah, thank you so much for sitting with me here today. I'm so excited for the album to be released. Like I like listened to it. I'm like, wait, it's like not going to be out for a few weeks. Like, I'm excited to talk about this.
Thank you. That means so much to me. Did you say that? Are you in New York?
I live in New Jersey, but I am in frequently in New York. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Okay, well, I hope I get to meet you at the New York show.
Yeah, I really want to go. I definitely plan on going. So I'll definitely like
Yay!
DM you guys or something.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah. We'll put you on the list. Just let me know.
oh my gosh, thank you. But yeah,
Of
I would love to
course.
see you there. I'm so, and I love that venue too. So that'd be awesome.
So great. Yeah.
But again, thank you so much for chatting with me today. I love the album. I'm sure everyone that watches this will as well. And I'm so excited, hopefully, to see you at the tour. And we'll definitely link the dates and all of that. We'll obviously link the album and stuff. But yeah,
Thank you.
thank you so much.
Thank you so much. This was so fun. Thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh, of course. And have a great rest of your day, I'm sure. And happy birthday
Thank you.
again.
Thank you.